It also has to do with, like, you can tell when they're good when the breadcrumbs are.
Wow, Vicky, nice. Got an echo, echo, echo. Hey, Vicky. Can you hear me? Hello. Wow.
Hey, Julie, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I don't see you. Where are you?
I'm hiding.
Hey, Dylan, we're getting a little echo here.
Yep.
Okay. I don't see you. Where are you?
Hey, Dylan, can you hear me?
Yeah, Julie, I can hear you.
We're getting a little echo here on the speaker.
Did it stop now? Because I just turned my other laptop sound off.
Is it better, John? Still, you can hear it echo.
Phase one, phase two. That's what the Michael. Joey started with phase one.
I see Jack.
We were invited, it's canceled. Well, they're gonna do a small family ceremony on the 21st, which is. Yeah. That this week? Today's the 16th, so. Well, then maybe it's the, anyway. And then we're gonna redo it.
My cousin did. Yeah. He's supposed to be married well, he did get married, but they did.
And urgency. Stay home. 2 words everyone's saying these days. Those words have lived in my head for more than 20 years.
Hi, Pam.
Hi, Jack. How are you?
I'm good.
Now more than ever, the world needs nurses and caregivers.
This is a little different.
Training and skills.
Gotta get used to it.
I guess so. Hi, Vicky. Well, the good thing is I figured this out pretty easily. It's amazing. Technology today is pretty easy to maneuver.
Yeah, we just got new stuff at the office. This is the old technology, but working fine.
Yeah. I'm gonna get coffee.
I'm gonna be here long tonight.
You what? Gonna be long?
I think so.
Why?
I know a lot of things, a lot of questions people have.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Dylan, can you hear me?
Yeah, Julie, I can hear you.
Do I need to turn one of these off? Go up to see.
Dylan, we have a big echo here. Is that because we speak and then there's a delay? Causes the echo over the smartboard?
You could turn down the smartboard volume. I'm looking at it right now. I don't hear the echo on the YouTube feed.
And when we heard Jack and Pam talking, there was no echo. It was clear when they're speaking. Same with Vicky.
I don't have any echo.
None here either.
So
None
must be
here.
the Smartboard.
Is this all we do? We just talk into the screen like this? I don't have to do anything else.
Do you have any video, Pam?
I see you.
Yeah, I don't see you.
Yeah, on your bottom left where it says video, there's like a little video camera. You probably have video off.
On the bottom left.
All the way on the bottom left of your screen. Yeah.
Right next to the mute button, it says start video. And if it has a
okay.
red line, that means people can't see you. If you
Oh, there she is. We gotcha.
Hi,
Okay.
Pam. Hi, Corey.
we want to do that here because we want the public to see everybody. Yeah.
I don't see John.
No, and I'm gonna try to go to gallery mode.
Oh,
Oh, you're not on.
here,
That's okay.
here.
You gotta set me up, actually. I'm not even logged in.
Up there's Julie. Hi, Julie.
Hi,
Wanna log
Jack.
me in?
Hi, Corey.
Hey guys.
Hey,
Hi, Corey. Hello.
Hey Pam, how are you?
Good. Thank you.
All right, so do we want to do that gallery mode so it looks like the Brady Bunch? We can see everybody at once.
The Brady Bunch.
Dylan, do we want to tell everybody to do that so they can see each other, or?
Well, yeah, you can do that. The YouTube feed has everybody with that gallery mode, and that might be the best.
Yeah.
Because if people are all talking at once, it's going to switch between everybody, and you're going to get dizzy looking at all of them.
So I don't have any room for Brian Carso or Jack O'Leary.
Nope. And
have
Jack's
8 boxes.
gonna be late.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll grow. It'll be like that old Prel commercial. You tell
Oh,
your screen will just get smaller.
okay.
Okay.
Your window gets smaller as more people come on.
Okay.
One of the things, once we do like attendance and stuff, the best thing usually is for people to go down in their bottom left corner and mute themselves while they're just listening, and then just unmute when you want to speak. Because otherwise, every piece of paper you move, every sip of water, everything the mic will pick it up. So once we get rolling, and we got to have also the administrators are doing budget presentations. So we're going to have a lot of people on this call. So that's why it'll be crucial to have people be on mute, except when they need to talk, once we get rolling.
What login do I need to use?
Oh, okay. I see the mute.
Yeah.
Okay.
B, capital S, and Sam D. Yes, and one.
Tell you what, this might be my 500th Zoom meeting this week already.
Yeah.
Wow, this is my first.
Oh yeah?
Yes. Yep. I'm just so impressed that I got on so easily. I was like worried all day about it.
Well, at least you don't have to worry about your chair height at home.
No?
Hello, Cheryl Nielsen. Oh, she's on mute.
No.
I'm not on Zoom. I think I can do a class.
Go to the board down.
Oh, yeah.
Go to the board down.
Yeah, because I just have to fit it in.
Get your board down. Go into the meeting.
Unmute too, something I picked up today actually. If you click and hold down the space bar, you can unmute temporarily. So you don't have to keep clicking off the button. You just hold down the space bar and it'll temporarily unmute you. And then you go back to muting when you let it go. So
Okay, I'll try.
thought.
Did you have a nice birthday, Corey?
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Corey.
Thank you. Thank you. It was good, you know, quiet, which was nice.
Yep. Okay.
I've been messing with that koi pond out back I built. So that's been fun.
Oh,
What's your water source? You put in a pump?
Yeah, I have a pump and a waterfall built into it. So yeah, it just recycles, and I probably have about 8 koi in there now, and they're doing
Wow,
great. So,
nice.
Don't use any copper fittings.
yeah, that's right. I heard that. Hey Don, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi.
hi, Dawn.
Hello, everybody.
So I don't see you. Oh, who's that?
Oh, I see Ashley.
Hello,
Hey Ashley.
how are
Hey,
you?
Jim Mitchell.
Percent of the time when I go on meetings, I do not put my video. No, nope, that's Gina. Oh, wait a minute, capital D. Gina's.
Alicia, where are you?
Over here?
Been muted. She looks like she's in California.
Oh, I did a screen background.
Ah, cool.
Okay, where's Corso?
Is Dylan? I see him on here. Are you here, Dylan?
Yeah, I'm here.
So I got a new phone and I can't get my emails. I can't remember how to reset my password.
Okay. I can do it for you.
Okay.
Is there any way you can email my work email? Because we're on YouTube, so I don't want everyone to get
Right.
So just email it to my work email what you want, and I'll do it right
Okay. Perfect. All right, I'll do it right now.
Okay.
Hi, Felicia.
Hi, who's saying hi?
Pam.
Oh, hey, wait, I gotta go over. I have it on my phone.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't have everyone.
Is that the Golden Gate?
It is. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Oh, there you are, Pam. Hi.
So where it said backdrop, that must be what it means, right? Background.
You first log on with the video, it gives you that option. So there.
Pretty cool.
Well, it's better than my current background, so I'm gonna roll with it.
I just logged in. I am now on, I should be on your screen.
I can see it now. Okay, good. Thank
Hi,
you.
Brian.
Hey, everybody, what a good looking bunch of people.
Hi, Rosemary.
In the Brady Bunch. Hey.
How is everybody doing?
Okay.
Good.
Little cabin fever?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right. Looking down the list, I think we have everybody, and Jack's going to be late. So if we just want to get started, Julie, do you want to start with a roll call vote? Or roll call, sorry, vote.
Joan Bouquet,
Here.
Brian Carso,
Here.
Jessica Decker,
Here.
Jack Fisher,
Here.
Corey Homer. Here somewhere, I know you are. Corey. Pam Lutfi,
Here.
Jack O'Leary, Felicia Sheehan,
Here.
Rosemary Walsh.
Here.
We do a quick pledge of allegiance. I think even though we're virtual, I think it's important. All right. So, I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of
United
America
States of
America.
and to the republic
Which
for which it
stands,
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
It was a little painful, but that's all right. All right. So we'll turn it over to John now for work us through the agenda.
Okay, Corey, thanks. The first thing was the meetings. We talked about this last week, or I'm sorry, last time. Julie, do we need to modify? Or are we gonna ask Ashley for her opinion between 006 and 006.1?
Ashley said we could go with the other one too, just leave the modifications in the other one, but we could adopt the other policy if we want it.
So we have two choices. We can either make the modifications to 006, like we talked about last time, or you can adopt 006.1, which is something from PSBA about attendance at meetings via electronic communications. But if you're fine with just making the modifications, we don't have to add anything new.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Me too.
That's fine with me.
Yep.
Okay.
Federal fiscal compliance one is just to update for emergency situations like we're going through now. So it gives us the ability to adjust in case of emergency.
you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, you can look between now and next week if you want. If anybody has anything they want to talk about it tonight, they can bring it up now. Otherwise, we can just give you time to look at it between now and next week. Anybody have any issues?
626 is just we're just adding those words to it. It's already an existing.
We'll move on to budget then. Before Maria starts as the first presenter, I just want to talk a little bit, just to kind of set the table, since we're going to be in uncharted territory again, just like we were in 08 and we were in 01, you know, and a couple other times when everything has hit the fan. In the past, we've kind of worked on developing a budget to get under the index that we brought to you guys, and then we tried to lower the tax rate as much as we could, or all the way to zero. And then we're going to have a little different strategy this year, because in light of everything that's going on and all the comments that were made last time we were together, we're doing everything in our power to bring you a zero right out of the gate for you to look at, because we just think it would be, you know, I think we all agree it'd be incredibly hard to ask for more money when, you know, 20 some million people are unemployed right now. So it's really not the time to be asking for money. So we're building a budget at zero. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to make life simpler. We're going to try to create a sheet that'll show the current year's budget, next year's budget if we were to have raised taxes 3.5%. And then the third piece would be next year's budget at a zero. And then we'll talk about what did we do to get from 3.5 back to zero. And then, you know, because you're going to be talking about large chunks, because by not raising the taxes 3.5%, that's roughly about $1.6 million. And so we've got to take the budget we were working on and figure out a way to adjust it $1.6 million. So we're working on that now, literally every day. And every day it changes. But we've developed this, we've been living in we call it living in three budgets right now, because we've been obsessed with the current year budget, trying to figure out where we can generate surpluses on things like no officials for spring sports games, no busing for spring away games, nobody doing detention, nobody doing after school to tutoring. You know, our budget's 80% salary and benefits. And while all our employees are getting their salary and benefits, there's a lot of ancillary things that are not happening, that are not part of the regular salary. So we do think there'll be breakage there on some of those things. So we're working on that. But we're living in three budgets. We're talking about what's the surplus in this one, what's the next one look like, and what's the next one look like, the 21-22 year, because the last thing we want to do is plug holes in next year's budget and then with no plan for the following year, because then we'd really be up the creek. You know, it's like if you have an income of 80,000, you get a $20,000 bonus and you spend it, and then next year you operate on a home budget of 100,000 instead of 80,000. Now you're up the creek because you can't count on that $20,000 bonus. So that's where we are. We got a lot going on. There's a grant through the state that Peg worked really hard with the administrators on. We applied for, I think, $513,000 in grant money, but there's only 5 million to go around for the state. So we're not sure if we'll have a legitimate shot at it or not, because we don't know if the big cities will gobble it all up. We were supposed to hear by tomorrow, but I heard they were swamped with applications, so it won't be ready to make decisions by tomorrow. So PD will need a little more time. I mentioned last week in the week in review also that there was an estimate of about $480,000 that we would get from federal money in the CARES Act. But yesterday when I was on a phone conference with superintendents around the state, they also talked about, well, then maybe PDE will cut our regular aid by 480 so that we would be even next year. You know, they could say that they didn't cut us a penny, but they really could cut us 480,000. If they do that to everybody, they could help, that would help them deal with their budget balancing act that they have to do. So we're working on that. But literally we're thinking about three budgets right now. What's the surplus now? Are there one-time events that we could buy, things we could buy, whether it be technology, textbooks or whatever, with this year money, so it doesn't get in and inflate next year's budget? And then are there other things in next year's budget that if we can't buy them with money this year and we can't fit them in next year's budget, can they be punted to the following year, 21, 22? So a whole variety of things. What could be in capital reserve? What wouldn't be in capital reserve? Could we buy a van out of capital reserve? All those different things. So we have a lot of balls in the air, and we still have a lot of ironing out to do. And obviously we won't be able to give you any answers from a macro standpoint of where we're at. You know, normally we do budget from micro building up. This time we're doing it from a macro we're at zero. How do we make it be zero? And then what are the ramifications in the subsequent budgets? So just from a global standpoint, that's where we are. And there's a lot of unknowns, and we're gonna have to work through those. And then at the May work session is when we'll be able to put everything together on the spreadsheet, you know, so you can look at the 3 budgets this year, next year with an increase, next year without an increase, and how did we get to next year without an increase? And what's our multi-year plan so that we don't have a big hole in 21, 22. So, okay, we're going to start with the director's budget presentations. The first one is Maria and Cheryl Nielsen from Special Ed Department are both online with us. And so I'll turn it over to Maria, okay?
Great. Hi, everyone. Given what John just said, I'm awfully glad I'm talking to you about this budget.
Maria, we cannot hear you.
Budget I presented last year to you at the time. It's good news this year.
Well, Maria, now you're frozen. I don't know if you can hear us, but now you're frozen. And everyone else, if you make sure your mic is muted, that will make it easier.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Where'd Maria go?
Can you hear?
We're gonna try again.
I can hear Maria.
Here.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Who can hear me?
Pam can.
Brian can.
Or can.
Felicia can.
John, can you hear me?
Now we can.
You guys good? Am I all right?
Now we can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, now I just have to find a place to put my computer. Let's see here. All right, is that all right? Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is obviously a crazy way to be presenting a budget, but it is good news, as I mentioned earlier. Despite a steady increase in the number of students we've had in special ed over the last couple of years, we actually have a slight reduction in our proposed budget. If you want to take a look at the current next to the proposed, I have a couple of areas where we have an increase. For instance, the first line item, chapter 15s, we're up about $9,000. But we have a reduction of $16,000 in tuition to other LEAs. So overall, it balances out, and I have a 0.2 reduction in the total budget and a 0.3 reduction in the general fund. So that is good news. If you want to take a look at the contracted services through IU20, again, I have a couple of areas where we have an increase, an area where there's a decrease as well. Overall, I show just a $1,500 increase in services. Occupational therapy service costs went up a little bit. That's gone up traditionally every year. But the number of students has only increased slightly. So we were able to, we put some things in place last year because we saw a huge increase there. And those things have been effective. We've managed to keep that number much lower. If there's no questions about either one of those, the final sheet is the special education enrollment. I like to give this to you every year. This shows you where our students are in the current year, which is the top chart. And next year, when we move everybody up a grade, graduate out our seniors, the numbers in red on the bottom chart, the plus numbers are indicative of CDD students who are coming into our program. You can see we have currently 6 students placed out of district. We go to 5 students placed out of district next year. And as usual, we drop a handful of students, but we typically make those up by our December 1st child count. So I don't know if we'll be increasing again next year in terms of the number of students. This is the 3rd year in a row where we've been over 800 students in special education. So I'm not sure what this current wave will do, if we're going to see the same shift that we saw after 9/11. It remains to be seen, but we are steadily increasing. That's all I have. I'll take questions.
I have a question regarding the movement to online distance learning. Do you think that there's going to be a large change in your budget as far as providing compensatory education if we need to for next year? How do you think that's going to play out?
You know, I don't know the answer to that. I would like to think no. We're way ahead of the game in terms of what other school districts are providing to their special education students. Many of the other districts didn't do any new learning until this week, and we've been doing it right from the beginning. We've been pretty conscientious about following to the greatest extent possible what's in student IEPs to try to avoid that. And basically, the state doesn't even know what's going to happen in terms of whether they're going to look at it as compensatory education, as future learning needs. We just don't know. Everything's up in the air. We also don't know what the hearing officers are going to decide in terms of what is required for compensatory education given the circumstances. So no solid answer there, Jessica. Jack,
Maria.
if you're asking, Jack, you're muted.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
A couple of them. Can you tell me what's in the travel and conferences for 4,000 this year, 6,500 next year, and 7,000? It's on 2 different line items, just classified separately.
That's travel and conferences for, one is for the administrators and educational consultant to go to, for example, the autism conference, law conferences, that sort of thing. The other one is for school psychologists and speech therapists to attend professional learning events. We have teachers that also go to the autism conference, and most of the conferences are within the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay, so John, I just would like to flag those as items that we could use our discretion as to whether that takes place next year and bring it back the following year. And then the other—
Jack, can I just jump in a second? The only reason I would be a little bit concerned about that is you're going to have 2 new supervisors, relatively new. Cheryl's been there for a little bit, but 2 new administrators who are really going to need some training. I would be cautious about not having them go to those trainings. So there is so much to be gained in terms of new learning and just with the law and budgeting and all of that that goes along with the administration of special education.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, you know that. I'm just concerned that if we're looking at 1.6 million to get us to 0, we need all of these small $4,000 or $5,000 accounts. I'm not saying they shouldn't go, but maybe we can do video conferencing. Maybe there are ways to just reduce that. Not that I don't think it's important, but we live in strange times. So John, just flag those and see where we go with them, that's all.
Sure.
And then the second item, John, was, or Maria, under equipment and equipment technology, can we put that into the capital reserve and let the capital reserve pay for that and get it out of general fund?
I'll let Billy speak to that.
I mean, again,
there's Bill.
May have to, oh, am I muted? Am I there now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I would say you could just understand it may have to go back in the following year.
We just kind of flag some items from each of the budgets that can work us toward that 1.6 million. That's all I had.
Maria, it's Dawn. Forgive me if I missed it, but emotional support going from 23,000 to 0 on the IU's budget.
Yes.
What was
That
the
was a
reason?
That we had a student that was in therapeutic emotional support in an IU run program. That student is no longer attending the program.
Got it. Thank you.
You got it.
Maria, also under that line, the preschool early intervention dropped drastically.
Yeah, what we do there is we look at the 3-year, the actuals of the cost of that line item. What that number is students who remain at CDD who are kindergarten eligible. We pay for those services for those students. So we have had money in that budget. We've not been charged that amount consistently over the years, so we dropped that.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Maria.
You got it.
Thank you, Maria.
All right.
Thank you, Maria.
Next up is Chris Ross with athletics.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? We're good? Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, I just have a couple talking points with the budget. We're able to maintain a flat budget. But just a couple highlights, and just a couple things that really bring to your attention. In the general operations that you guys have in front of you, for the most part in middle school, it's really like medical supplies and busing. I was able to cut a lot from coaching education out of 580, just because we hit a swell with the new mandates that the state required of us to have every coach trained in first aid and every coach trained in coaching education. So now that we've done a 2-year training, most of the coaches are trained, and I was able to cut that by almost $2,000 because we're all trained, and anyone that comes in, it will not have that big swell that we had when the state mandated that training within 2 years. The high school, 57% of our budget is getting kids to games, making sure officials are at the games, and making sure that people can keep score at games. So it's so that's 57%. At DVMS, it's 60%, and at Dingman, Delaware, it's 53%. So that is the transportation, our contracted services with officials, and then our support staff, scorekeepers, and such. And our supply is only at 27%. So we don't have much room for error when it comes to our bidding for supplies and coaches planning for the future. The spring season, like I was going to mention it, but I know John already mentioned it, but there will be, and I know Jack's one question for me every time I do this is, are you running on a surplus? Are you running a deficit? So just because of the spring, again, that's 57% of our budget from the springtime that wasn't used between the buses, between the officials, and between the support staff, people manning games. The only thing I would want to not warn you guys about, but just thinking and looking to the future, 2 things. One, we were going to start a rifle club this year and then transition it to a team the following year. However, we never got the chance to run the club. So I don't know how John and Jimmy feel about it, but I think if we ran the club for next year and then transition, I could write the letter to get into the league for the 21-22 school year. So, and then also I've attended a number of webinars on girls wrestling. And that is, right now, it's the fastest growing female sport in the country. And the PIAA is really making a push, and there's a hashtag sanctioned girls wrestling that is going around Pennsylvania because the PIAA needs 100 teams in order to make it an official sport. They're nowhere near that now, but I have a feeling that within a year or two that they will be up and running. And right now we have a number of girls that participate on the boys side because there's not a girls team. So that's just something to keep in mind moving forward in the next couple of years. But really, that's all I had. If you guys have any questions, I can take questions on any items that you see or you have questions on.
Chris, what's the have the ADs been talking about fall sports and what the likelihood of having fall sports are?
Well, not really, because we're holding out hope. We're hoping. I know that PIAA sort of set July 1 as a date that kids can get out and practice again. I'm not sure how likely that July 1 or how, that I think that might be a little overly optimistic.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that we can get on the fields in the fall. I'm hoping, but they always have to measure risk versus reward when it comes to that.
Yeah, at the collegiate level right now, ADs seem to be 50-50 on whether fall sports are going to happen at all, it seems like. So just to throw that out.
So Chris, what's the increase in the football budget?
The increase in the football budget, we had 35 helmets get rejected through our conditioning company. So I would say probably between 30 and 32 helmets just aged out. Mm-hmm. They're only allowed to be 10 years old. And then we had some other failures. So we had to replace those helmets. And then I believe there's, I have right in front of me, there's shoulder pads that also failed inspection when we sent them out to, I think there were 5 or 6 pairs of shoulder pads that failed inspection.
So once again, Mr. Hessling, I would ask you whether or not that can be paid for through the capital reserve, since it has a significant life to it, 6 to 10 years. This is not refurbishing, this is replacement, right?
This is, yeah, it is, they're brand new helmets, and basically our reconditioner is also a rep. So any helmet that we turn into him, we get a break on the helmet, on the new helmet coming back.
So I would ask, Bill, for you to go through the entire budget for the high school and see what could be paid for out of capital reserve, and we'll get it off the general fund. And we'll worry about the general fund, the capital reserve next year. But it does seem like we can skim some money off of this budget, just like with Maria's, not lose anything, just have a different payment source.
Okay. And for everybody's edification, the other thing we can look at is when you have things that are not annual purchases, we can look at our surplus for this year, as opposed to capital reserve, because we don't even have enough capital reserve for the next round of things that we're going to talk about. So, and we'll talk about that a little later.
I just want to throw out there again, student fundraising for items like this. I know when I was in school, that's what we did. We needed new uniforms. We fundraised for them. And I've asked many times for what the breakdown is, and I don't think we ever got a real clear answer. as to what our students fundraise for their own activities.
Traditionally, what happens is we provide everything that they need to compete. And then your booster clubs fundraise and things of that nature for extra things, whether it's t-shirts or sweatsuits, things like that nature. But the actual things you need to compete, Delaware Valley has always provided those. It's a little different than some of us that grew up in other states where there wasn't that obligation. For example, when I grew up in New York and I taught in New York, we used to put out these huge lists of all the things that parents need to buy kids for school. By law in Pennsylvania, we're obligated to provide everything that they need for school. That's why you see when you go to Staples, there's always huge lists for Port Jervis and Menacing Valley, and there aren't lists for Delaware Valley because there's different rules in different states. It's kind of strange how neighboring states are so different.
Can I just get a clarification on what obligated means? Because you mentioned we're obligated to provide everything for school, not for extracurricular, or is that indeed what the law covers?
No, I was just using that as an analogy that
Okay.
that's the way, yeah, that's the way we do it at DV for decades, that if it's needed, we provide it. Because we always talked about being so careful to not hit up our businesses for donations for things that we could cover or that we really, really don't need. We have a lot of fundraising ideas that come around to us and we say no to them because we know that they're going to be hitting up the same businesses that we already hit up. Like there are different companies that come around and they want to create these free schedules or posters. And it won't cost you anything, but they'll hit up 20 businesses in town for $1,000 each and they run away with half the money. And so we had our local businesses would pitch in 20 grand and we'd only get 10. So we always say no to stuff like that because we're like, when we need stuff, the community really steps up for us. So we didn't want to hit up for anything extra. It's hard because we don't have a lot of industry here too. All right, next is we're talking about student activities, and that would be Jimmy Mitchell and Vicki McNeely.
Hello, how are you? Okay, for elementary, can you guys hear me? Okay, good. Really not much has changed from year to year. If you look at the costs on the DVES has always been the highest because of DVE TV. Shahola and Dingman's are about the same. Primary school is always less because it's harder to offer clubs for the little guys that they can stay after for. We try to hit up as many things as we can within the budget that they have. And like I said, it doesn't, for elementary, it doesn't really change much. They might change the names of the clubs or based on interest, which is what a lot of them will have on there. From year to year, what they offer may change. The numbers are generally the same. So that's pretty much it for elementary. Jim?
I'll chime. Yep. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Just want to chime in real quick on the secondary level. Again, first and foremost, thanks to the support of the board. We talk about this every year at both middle schools and the high school. It's so impressive to see the diverse number of clubs and activities that are offered across the board for those kids that have interest in a multitude of things. It keeps them connected to our school and after school. So of course, we want to thank you guys for that. Just one of the things I want to notice are we have a lot of clubs at both middle schools that operate almost every year. They're popular, they operate every year, but then you'll see some that pop up and that's through student interest. Because our principals always tell kids, if you have an interest in something and it's something popular at the time, you get a number of kids that are interested and we can get an advisor, we'll make it happen for the kids. So you will see them as well. Now, the interesting thing that we just had a conversation is the difference in the amount of money between Delaware Valley Middle School and the Dingman Delaware Middle School. And believe it or not, it's really due to one thing. And that is the fact that the Dingman Delaware Middle School has 2 theater productions where the Delaware Valley Middle School has 1. And I could tell you 17 years ago, when I started at Dingman's, it was that way. And it's still that way. So I don't know how and why that got started. But of course, it was popular and we did it. But we had the discussion the other day. That's possibly something that we can look at. It's a perfect time to say, listen, we're going to cut one. That will probably, John, I don't know if you had the number there from Brian, but it would pretty much even out those numbers or close to it and bring some equity back. And we thought now is a perfect time to do something like that. If you guys think that would be a good move.
Yeah, Brian had mentioned yesterday, it's about 16,000 that if we
Yeah.
go back to equity where Shahola only has 1 show, DV Middle has 1 show, DV High School has 1 show, but Dingman's has 2. If we cut that out, it's about 16,000 in staffing that we would avoid.
Right. And Dingman's would get rid of their spring production. Our fall production is tied in with their senior citizen dinner theater. And it's also in the other middle school. And on a positive note, then, we're always scrambling to not go on the same dates and times as the high school spring production. So that would take care of any conflicts there as well. So it kind of does make sense in the times that we're in right now. So that's something we're seriously discussing at the middle school level. And then, of course, I'm always impressed at the high school. It's incredible, the clubs that are there. If anybody's ever spent any time after school up at the high school, it's amazing. The action that's going on between the athletics outside in the nice weather and then the activities and clubs inside. That building is nonstop throughout the early evening on any given day. So again, we appreciate the support. That's all I have there.
Yep.
So Jim, I'm looking at the high school, the salary are $221,980, correct?
That is correct.
Now, there's one category called other. Have you allocated money to other? On the right-hand side, halfway down the page.
Yeah, that would be, they're indicating all the clubs they currently run, but they have the flexibility to horse trade them in and out depending on what the students need.
Going back to what I referred to earlier, Jack, kids will come to us and say, hey, I'd really like this. This is a hot thing. You know, I got a number of kids that are interested. Could we do it? And I think that's, like Bill said, why that's there.
But have you allocated money to that?
With it being, Bill could answer that.
Actually, I'll tell you that, and I want everybody on the Zoom call to keep it amongst themselves, but when I look at the actual expenditures, the building budgets, they attempt to come as accurate and close as they can, but I've seen historically where they have more in the budget than actual. So behind the scenes, I have made an adjustment, even in this year's 1920 budget, for that exact thing, Jack, in other words. So it's kind of like behind the scenes, know that they're a little bit high, but they're trying to protect what they may need to have. So I already make an adjustment for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's the threshold for when we say that we're not going to operate a particular club and we're going to ask the students to come up with a different club instead? Like, is it 10 students have to participate or?
Well, for elementary, you know, when I was in DDES, if a teacher came and, you know, asked for a club, I said that was like my minimum number, depending on what the club was. And if they had less than that, I'm like, you know, no, you know, I would say no, because it was a lot of money, depending again on what it is. So like art club, she holds a lot. Some of the other clubs, they can't take as many. So the fitness clubs that's probably the best one that we had. And they would run 4 different sessions of that because they take 25 to 30 kids at a time. So it varies depending on the club.
Right. So I guess I'm saying like existing clubs though, at what point would we say, listen, the last couple of years, you've only had 5 kids that are consistently attending this club. We're going to not fund that particular club and either come up with a different one or.
And the principals do that every year, you know, and that's why, like I said, a lot of times what happens is I've had teachers who offer it one year and then they're like, you know, they didn't get enough, so they don't do it the next year. So kind of go along with what Billy was saying. We sometimes have, you know, our actual is less than what we budget because somebody decided not to do it. And then some years I have to turn people away because, you know, that it would be over the budget that we have. So it kind of changes from year to year. But generally, if somebody only has that many kids, myself as a principal, you know, we always suggested, well, why don't we try something different? But I never took any that were 5, unless it was like guitar club, you know.
Yeah, and I'll echo those same words at the secondary level. You know, we're always looking at least 15, and I'll go back to when I was a middle school principal. And Jessica, another good question is, one of the things that we do is there's like a club sign up form with the advisor. So the principal, before they would sign off and approve it, would see the number of kids, who the advisor is,
right,
how long they're going to offer the club, and what the final cost for the salary is. So ultimately it would be the building principal to say yay or a nay. And of course, if the numbers are low, either they got to recruit more kids or they would have to search for another club and say, hey, maybe we'll try that again next year.
One thing you might have discussed already too is just for this year coming up, one thing you might want to look at is, are there any clubs we can collapse together, you know, that have some sort of synergy? You know, like, I don't know too much about these, but off the top, foreign language and foreign film club. Maybe there's some synergy for this coming year that they can work together, you know, and under one advisor, et cetera. So, you know, and then in the future, we can look to break them out again if that need arises. But that just might be something we could find savings for this year.
Sure. That's a great point, Corey. And just off the top of my head, I know there's a couple of popular clubs at the middle school level, like at Dingman's, the engineering club does a fall and a spring, and the walking club does a fall and a spring. So just in the times we're in, if we just cut it to once until we get through this, and some other scenarios like combining, I think that's excellent thought.
Now I'm going to talk about adding money. The rifle club, it's listed as a potential. Is that still in the works?
Yes, as Chris said, we were all set to go this year at the high school as a club, and it was going to be in the spring. You know, we just got our storage area ready, getting our supplies in. We had our advisor to go as a club, and then of course this issue hit. So like Chris's suggestions is now, because we didn't do it as a club this year, we're looking at possibly doing it as a club next year, seeing what the interest is, getting the coach involved with the kids and getting comfortable with it, and then offering it into the sport the following year.
Okay. I didn't realize it was a spring event, so that makes sense. Okay.
Rosemary?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
It's not for the sport, it's not a spring event as a sport.
Oh, okay.
But what we're going to do for the club, we are offered a range free of cost if they didn't have to turn the heat on. So that's why we were going to run that's why we're going to run the club in the springtime.
Well, this year you should have done it in March and forget April.
I should have done it in December. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you.
So is the rugby club a high school or middle school?
You're off, Jimmy.
Yep, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah,
Are we funding any of the rugby?
Yeah, it's actually middle school and high school age kids. Keith Fitzpatrick, who's one of our new staff members, he was involved in that and brought that. And there were some kids from our district that was doing it on the outside. So we're starting that club, but it's actually a mixture of middle school and high school right now, Jack.
I just didn't see where that might be.
That's other.
Yeah, I'm sure that's other. Yeah, it probably is, John. With it being new, that's probably one of the other. You're absolutely right with Keith just coming aboard. That's probably one of the clubs that will start next year.
Thank you.
I just wanted to point out on the very last page, there's going to be substantial savings next year. It's the page that says summary of other co-curricular student activities. And this is where we try to do an estimate every year of what we anticipate in terms of kids moving on to state, national, and world competitions. And a lot of this fluctuates based on where the events are. Obviously, it's a lot cheaper to have kids go to a national event in Orlando than it is in Anaheim or someplace like that. So where the national events are, make a big difference in terms of the cost. Same thing with OM. You know, traditionally the last couple of years we had 3 teams going to OM, and then the last 2 years we had 7 and 7. And and then when that comes back east a little, it's easier for them to go to Michigan State than it is to go to Iowa State, because it's a 1-day bus ride instead of a 2-day bus ride and things of that nature. So that's certainly good news that the locations of the big events, once they leave states, and states also is a factor too, because sometimes states will be at Pocono Mountain for OM. And this year they were going to be all the way out at Lock Haven. So the kids were going to have to go the night before, stay over. Whereas if it's at Pocono Mountain, they just go there in the morning. So you avoid that cost too on the years when we're at Pocono Mountain for states. So that's kind of why that fluctuated so much, is just because it just luck has it that there's going to be a lot of national competitions on the East Coast next year.
With the world
on co-curriculars.
Yeah, with the world in national competitions, do we send first, second, and third? Just first, second? First, second
is when it's been in the past. We've often talked about that, about if you're second in the state, why would you go to nationals? We've not just for OM, but for FBLA, FCLA. If you weren't the state champ, why would you move on? But we've never bitten the bullet on that.
Well, I think it's something that maybe consider for this coming year as a possibility to save. You know, it's something we could always scale up later on, but for this first, to get over this bump, I would consider it.
Right. Okay, the next thing is technology with Vicky.
Am I on? Okay. All right. So bear with me. This is my first go around for you guys. A few things, if you look on the first page, which is equipment, subscriptions, and maintenance, we actually came in under last year's number. Most things on here didn't change. There was a few. I was able to adjust some software money due to enrollment and changes that we made in what grade levels are using certain software. So we didn't need as many subscriptions, which you can see, you know, for RC and RI. We are doing high school labs this year. Gina had her rotational of when things needed to be replaced, and they were up for this year. And due to some of the software that these labs use, they really need good machines. The servers and maintenance went up a little bit. Again, that's that replacement cycle. They're on the ready to go and need to be replaced. And I did add in on here a line item for, we talked a little bit about this for Chromebook and smartboard replacements, and especially this year now that we've given out so many Chromebooks, we may need to actually use that depending on what happens when we get them back. But even with all of that, that was still came in under on this category where we were last year. For all of the maintenance stuff, that pretty much it went up slightly due to software increases that I don't have any control over. For our financial application, you see that went up, and our Power School licenses and maintenance, that went up. Everything else pretty much was either the same or a slight increase. And then where you see educational and administrative support, that covers all of those companies underneath where it says total. And we had to add into that for our data backup that we added this year. While we don't pay, we lucky we didn't pay for that for the hardware, but there is a monthly cost for that, for them to do that. So that was added into there. All right, and on the last page, that is down somewhat. Our, you can see where it says not applicable for DVES. We won't need cable. At the end of June, our actual contract was up with PDE, and we worked with the IU, and we're should come through with E-rate, but we're going to be able to connect DD Strahola and DVES with fiber and still coming in less than we were spending before using cable. So, so overall, we're up $1,000 from last year's budget. But like I said, some of those things were not things I could control. You know, they were pieces that went up due to, you know, software costs. So, questions?
So once again, back to Bill. Why is your financial application going up 20% plus?
Purchase and maintain servers, so that's was primarily the jump there.
He's on mute.
Oh. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
We went to the cloud instead of having have to purchase new servers and maintain our own servers. So that's the biggest reason for the increase.
And that's the push most of the software companies are making now.
Vicki, why the big jump in first in math, K-8?
Okay, that actually was, first in math will be new this year. That was fast math, which is going away.
Okay.
So that is a new product that hopefully, we're not sure what will be covered under the SMART grant that PEG got. Is some of it is covered under that, but was able to make an adjustment with, like I said, with some of the other software due to lower enrollment. So it kind of evened itself out. But that, yeah, it was not fast. It was not first in math last year. It was fast math. And with Flash disappearing, fast math ran under Flash. So we had to look for something new.
Okay, since Jack didn't ask it, and I thought that's what he was getting ready to ask. I know that we have a cycle as far as replacing technology, but I also assume that some of these items are flagged as far as things that we can use a surplus from this year for, as opposed to perhaps like replacing some of those Chromebooks that we get back that we wouldn't necessarily have planned for, that we can potentially use, you know, some of those surplus funds from this year to purchase instead of adding them to our budget.
Right. Good point.
Yep.
In that,
Sorry to steal your thunder, Jack. I really thought that's what you were going to say.
in that Pennsylvania $5 million grant through PDE that everybody was allowed to apply for, what did we buy? 513,000 or something like that? 513,000 we applied for. We don't know how much we'll get, but it was 150 Chromebooks were part of that. So I'm sorry, 1,500.
1,500, right.
So if we get any kind of money, that's a great place to buy the Chromebook so that we can see what we can do and see if we can back some of this out of the budget.
And Jessica, when I first put that in there, this was prior, obviously, to this whole virus thing, it was like, all right, that's great. You know, we talked about it so many times. Now, I'm really concerned about what we will or won't get back, or, you know, the condition and where we'll be at with that. But, you know.
Absolutely. And listen, nobody could have predicted when you were doing these budgets that what's happening now was going to happen. So certainly, but just looking forward, things that we can, you know, use those for. Obviously, this is one of them. I don't want to, you know, obviously deplete the technology budget because it's important to move forward with it. But, you know, some of these extra costs that we can use one-time funds for, it's important to look at.
Absolutely.
And Vicki, on our Microsoft Campus Agreement, Education Enterprise, the leasing, has anybody contacted Microsoft to ask for a a 1-year reduction, abatement. They are the world's leading education company, and they must realize what's happening across.
Right. Nope, I did not. Again, at the time when I was doing all this, that this was not a thing. So, but I will certainly reach out to them for sure. Yep.
We use a third-party vendor for that?
For
the campus agreement, or do we just go directly to Microsoft to
No,
pay the license?
through Microsoft. Mhm.
Yeah, maybe a nice timely letter at this point.
Can't hurt, right?
Can't hurt, right? Yes.
We won't tell them that we have 4,000 Google Chromebooks.
No, we won't mention that at all. No.
No. All right.
All right, next is DV Cyber School and tuition payments to outside cyber schools, Jimmy and Billy.
Yeah, Bill, if you don't mind, I'll start. I just have a few seconds and then I'll turn it over to Bill with the money aspect. I'm really focused on the first page and then I'll turn it over to Bill from there. It was an interesting year for sure with our DV Cyber, and an exciting year because at the start of the year, as you know, we introduced a whole new tier, another level of cyber through our IU. We continued our regular cyber online education through Pearson, but then added our IU level as well. So you could see that why we're adjusting with those numbers for that. We did have quite a few people come in compared to what our projections were, and that's a multitude of reasons. One of them being we did put a heavy, PR with the new brochure for our own cyber. Myself, Maria, Stephanie Eby, we had a meeting at the start of the year for the outside cyber parents to come in so we could discuss our product along with our current cyber parents. And we thought that was fairly successful as well. So you could see the numbers certainly we had to bring up from 75 to 90. And then based on our numbers with the new IU, we thought it was reasonable to add 20 for our IU next year. If you look down at the technology equipment, we put $25,000 in there because our cyber program now is probably about 10 years old. John, you may know that, or Vicky, I'm going to say around 10 years, Peg, about 10 years old. Many of the laptops that we used definitely need to be replaced. They've been beat up, worn out. Now, thanks to Bill, with this surge, we were able to get some more this year to put a Band-Aid on it. And thanks to Vicky in the tech department, we're now able to move away from laptops and be able to give our kids that go to cyber a Chromebook. The issue there was the filtering process. And they were able to do that. So, which is nice. We could probably purchase 3 Chromebooks for the price of 1 laptop. And especially going into next year, I can tell you guys, I just told our cabinet last week, I'm very concerned in this area because based on what we're going through, we could have a surge in parents and kids wanting to go to cyber next year. We could, at least at the start of the year. If we're able to start and there's no vaccine yet, you may have parents and kids saying, I'm starting the year in cyber. And of course, we want them to come to our cyber if that's the case.
And there's
But
the
we
flip
just
side of that, that there are plenty of parents that are dying for their kids to get back to school. So hopefully that offsets the parents that,
absolutely,
and
yes.
hopefully by that point, by August, the virus will be, obviously on its way down. And because
Yes.
I think that there'll be less parents that want to do cyber this coming year than want to flood to it.
That is correct. And you're right. We just don't know. That's why we kept the numbers based on what happened this year. We didn't do anything else, predicting anything because we don't know. And it's funny to say that when we were giving out Chromebooks about a week ago, I can't tell you the number of parents that said to me when I was greeting them, please get this over soon. I want my kids back. So you're absolutely right. So that's our best effort there for that. And I'll turn it over to Bill now to talk more about the other cybers and the dollar amounts.
Okay, if you turn the page to our projections on the tuition for the cyber for outside the school district, it is a moving target. This is a rough guess. The key to take away from this, the total of these two budgets, there's actually a slight increase just based on projections. But if you look at the DV cyber, that could have gone to the outside cyber, the cost avoidance there is substantial. If you turn to the third page of this part of the presentation, you'll see that for a regular education student, if we are able to have them come to our DV cyber, it is a $9,300 savings per student. And on the bottom, for a special ed student, if they come to our DV cyber, we save $22,600 per student. So you got to look at the cost avoidance here. Our projections are that the line items themselves are going to stay flat or a slight increase. It is one of the most difficult things to try and budget, and they do come and go sometimes. So some of the numbers you see are based upon students that come in halfway through the year, et cetera. So they're the best guesses we have. The other thing is, I'm sincerely hoping that the legislators didn't forget about the momentum they had for addressing the cost of cyber schools, and would love to see them come up with the outside cyber for a flat amount that the legislation had been talking about before. I hope they don't lose that idea, because it's going to help them balance their budgets, or certainly help us balance our budgets. So we'll see what happens there and keep an eye on that. Any questions on our projections?
How successful have we been in getting students to switch over from outside cybers to ours?
I can answer that. Again, I can't put a specific number on it, Rosemary, but we have been, I think, quite successful. I know at the start of the year when we had that meeting and did the brochures, we had quite a few come over. So we are successful, but it's always a fluid number, moving in and out, people moving into the district, people leaving the district. And we've also done a great job and making sure these families are still living in our district. That's another thing that we need to police and monitor, which will save us money as well. And that's something that we really worked hard at this year as well.
And you'll see
Last thing, if I could just add one more thing while it's on my mind, because it did get crazy. One of the things that we tried this year that was successful too, kids that enter cyber, they can enter at the start of the year. And when they enter at the start of the year, they must stay until the end of the first semester. That's the first 2 marking periods. And then at the end of the first marking period, kids that want to come back may come back. Kids that want to go in then can go in. We just don't want these kids in and out, in and out, in and out. So it's the beginning of the year, midpoint, and then of course end of the year. So it does get crazy. And I know Dylan Saturno's on this call here, and I just want to shout out to him and thank him. And Vicky will tell you how he's our go-to person for getting the laptops and Chromebooks set up and out to our families. And he did a phenomenal job when it got crazy there, especially at the end of the semester. So I just want to publicly thank Dylan. He's on this call because he worked real hard at making that happen.
That he did.
And I was just going to give a shout out to Maria. You'll see there were 12 special ed kids in the IU program this year in our first year. And several of those are ones that Maria had recruited back from an outside cyber. And if you look there, the estimated savings is 22 grand per special ed kid. So thank you very much, Maria. We may have to consult with you in the future to continue doing that. Jack O'Leary, welcome to the meeting, buddy.
Thanks. I wasn't sure if I was here or not. Sorry I was late. I got a directive.
Were you out getting new glasses?
No, you see those? I broke them. It's not easy. It's not easy when the governor of New York is sending you emails.
All right, any other questions on the cyber issues?
No.
All right, so the last piece of paper is the total school budgets. You'll see there on the top left, each school is listed, the per student allocation for elementary, middle, and high school, the projected number of students this year, and what that budget measures out to be. Then on the other side of the black line, you'll see the projected number of students next year, what their budget was for next year, and then whether they were under or over that budget. And you'll see 3 of them were over by a little bit, and then 4 of them are actually under budget for a total of 12,000 under budget for their budget allowance. A second in the middle there, the second category, this is the Jack O'Leary Memorial category we like to talk about, and it's under by $27,000. Remember, we had taken a hard look at this last year, but we had some long-term leases. So this will continue to go down as we kind of shed some. We're heavy on copiers, and the teachers won't agree with you, but we can say that. But we're going to continue as the leases come up to take a look at, what is the equity from building to building and things of that nature, and how can we scale back some more. So that's about 27,000 less. So all totaled for the building budgets in the bottom third, the budgets are grand total of 39,000 less for next year compared to this year, between reduced copier costs and decreased enrollment. So we're about 50 kids less enrollment wise in our projections. And we have those building budget books. If anybody wanted to come in and look at them, we can put them on display like we've done in past years, put them on the counter in the small boardroom. If you want to, the small conference room, if you ever want to look at them.
Okay.
Any questions on that? Okay, our next thing is to look at the agenda for next week's meeting. If you minimize your Zoom screen, you probably should see, will they see board docs in the corner like we do? I'm minimizing my Zoom, and then it says board docs LT up in the corner. That should get you back to the agenda.
Can't see the screen. Oh, their screen too. They go to their Google, or they probably can see it.
We'll wait for a minute to make sure. Is anybody having a problem finding the agenda?
I've got you on iPad, but then I got my computer, my laptop next to it. So I'm not doing it that way.
Yeah, it's nice to have two. Yeah, you have to maximize and then talk. All right, we'll skip through the reports unless anybody has any questions because they looked at, or no financial reports or anything? Yeah. Any questions about financial reports, treasurer's report, or bills for payment? All right, let's go to item 8, personnel items. We're going to have another retirement to add for next week. we got a letter of retirement from Marco Sant, who's a phys ed teacher in Dingman's. He had to wait to see if the state was gonna give everybody a full year of service in Peasers before he knew if he could retire or not, because if they were gonna, originally Peasers was gonna not count the spring towards people's, but Act 13 of the legislature that was approved said that everybody would get their full pay for the year and a full year of Peaser service. So then that allowed him, because then he had his 30 years. He wouldn't have had it. So, but we're going to miss him. Mark was actually, the trivia question is who was the very first head football coach? And it was Mark Osant. It was Mark, then it was Vito Qualia, and then Keith Olsemer. So we've had 3 coaches in all the years. And it's just a great guy. So you don't see it on there because we don't have any right now, but that'll be on for next week. Under appointments, we'll have the Dingman's Middle School assistant principal, and we may have the DV High School assistant principal. They're doing interviews first round tomorrow, and then the cabinet is doing second round interviews early next week. So actually, that's right. I'm sorry. The Dingman's one will be a change of status down below because it's an internal candidate. Item C, request to retract child rearing leaves. There are several people who were going to take maternity leaves, but because we're doing online learning as opposed to face-to-face on your feet all day, there are a couple teachers who were willing to retract their leave letters and continue to teach. So we were thrilled to have them because, we'd always rather have the regular teacher in there as opposed to substitutes. So that's why there's a request to retract in 8C.
John, I'm looking at the dates on these, and it's from May 4th, from May 20th, May 11th. Who's teaching those classes right now?
They are, that's when they were gonna go, and now they're not gonna go.
They were taking sick time for a while.
But who's covering, like, Lindsay Zabo or Gonzalez just had her baby a week ago. She's teaching with 3 kids running around the house. That must be
I don't
fun.
think, if the first one's running, we're gonna get her on the track team.
Well, the first 2 were running.
I mean, the one.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so these 3 are actually teaching, so
Wow.
we're very lucky
I
in that
Give
respect.
them a lot of credit.
Any questions on any other personnel? All right, moving to item 9, items for approval. Nine A, you'll see we have, I think this is the first time ever we haven't had volunteers to approve. Usually 9A is always volunteers, but since we don't need volunteers right now, I can't get fingerprinted because nobody's open to fingerprint you. So we have one person tenure, the 1-year extension of the teacher's contract. C is the paper supply bid. D is the base bid for the door project for this summer, replacing doors. Item E, we'll take a minute to talk about. And it's our recommendation to reject the bids for all the summer work that was bid out. It was over. We had a lot of people actually bid, which is a good thing because sometimes we don't always have a lot of people. But a lot of the bids were over budget. And the state also is really trying to get us to limit construction to essential, what they consider essential, because we don't know where we're going to be in a couple months. We don't know if we're going to be in the clear or if we're still going to be under restrictions. But the fact that we were well over bid, we think that if we reject them, we would see better prices next summer than we would this summer, because we don't think things will magically be better by next summer. So these, I call these pre-corona bids. We want to see the post-corona bids.
John, if you don't mind, I just want to mention that those bids there were the ones that we went through the architect and needed to go out to the public. If you recall, on the project lists, there were some projects that the district can do themselves, which was the doors, for example. We bid that. and other ones through a state bid, such as the curtain system replacement at Dingman's, the dimmer rack, the LED lighting that we had talked about upgrading, the seal coating. We are actually going to do that in the general fund this year. We have an NRG upgrade at Dingman's Middle School. One that we rejected was a cooling tower. That is now on a state bid, so Marvin's going to monitor whether that's an attractive way to do this once we get through the opened up or allowed to do projects. We had an acrylic roof at the high school that's on a state bid. That was actually approved the year before last, and we are waiting for it to come through with the contractor on a state bid. And I wait till the next, but I talk about the Pike Power and Light upgrade to a primary service. That's actually a line item or an agenda item for consideration. The history behind that, I brought it up a few months ago, but we can save, if we have primary service versus secondary service, it will have some upfront capital costs, and we will have to maintain our equipment and own our transformers, but the amount of electric charges or the cost that we can drop on the main campus is about $16,000 annually and about $15,000 annually at the Delaware Valley Elementary School campus. For the capital estimates, and Pike County Light and Power has really worked with us. They are basically doing their labor at no cost and giving us the depreciated cost of the existing transformers. But with the cost estimated on the main campus of $28,000, but savings of $16,000 annually, it's a 1.75 year payback. So I think it would be definitely worth our while to do it. And at the other campus, the payback is about 2.15 years. So if we're looking at trying to reduce our operating costs, that would drop at about $30,000 a year moving forward, because the cost of the primary service versus what they call secondary service is significant. So I would recommend that the board approve that so that Marvin and myself can move forward with getting the electrical work done and make the arrangements with Pike County Light and Power.
Any questions about any of those items? The electricity switchover, or the bids that we'd be rejecting, or the door bids that we'd be accepting?
Could we get a copy of the rejected bids that we're rejecting, just so we have reference for next year?
Sure.
It makes sense to reject them all, though. You don't want to be doing construction this summer. As little as possible.
Sure. Any other questions about any of those things? And then the last thing on there.
The door bids, there's such a huge discrepancy though between the two of them. So was Kelly Brothers able to do the same as Marpol?
It's really weird because Kelly Brothers are the exclusive provider of those doors. So Marpol had to get their price from Kelly Brothers, believe it or not, because they're the wholesaler. So really bizarre, that go figure. I don't know why, but so that's why people were hesitant to even bid, because they figured if Kelly's bidding, how are we going to beat them if we're buying it from them?
So Kelly Brothers just charged Marpol a whole lot more for the same doors that they were going to install for a lot less.
I think so.
Well,
she's getting the hang of construction. That's how it's done. That's exactly how it's done. Yeah.
The other thing with that is the installation is being done by Marvin and Frank Navarro and their staff, and Chris Lordy coordinates that with those doors are identified with the SBOs. The other thing with Marpol, they may have included the labor in their bid. We don't know that. that's what you run into when you're bidding. But there was such a substantial difference that I do wonder if they didn't read the clause that said they didn't have to include the labor. So we're okay with the Kelly bid, and we had to bid it because of the size of the number of the purchase.
Any other questions about that? Okay, then the last thing on there is, if I can find it, is the approval to nominate someone to serve on the IU board. Pam's term. Geez, Pam, how many years has it been?
You're muted, Pam.
12, 13, 14, somewhere in there.
So Pam, and then there's other people from other districts as well, right, that are up this year. So do we is Pam want to do it again?
I'm fine as long as nobody else prefers to do it. I'm fine with it.
They're all going to mute their screens right away because nobody wants to make it live. You always have to do.
Don't make eye contact. I think first, I mean, I think that if Pam wants to do it again and is willing to do it again, then I think that after her years of service, I think we should offer it to her first. And if that's something that, I know that there's been solar flares and snowstorms and all sorts of natural disasters that have occurred while you're on your way down there. But I do think that after 12 years of service of driving down and representing the district, if you would like to represent this again, then I certainly think that we should support that.
Thank you. I don't mind.
Absolutely. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll plug her name in for next week.
Thank you. And I'll be having my first IU Zoom meeting this upcoming week. So this was good practice.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll be a pro soon.
All right. The next thing is miscellaneous, in case you guys had other things you wanted to bring up. We could also speak about the non-financial aspects of the wastewater treatment plant in public, and then just talk about the negotiation parts in executive session afterwards. I have a question for Dylan Saturno, though. Dylan, how do I see any comments that are in the chat box on YouTube so that I can bring them up at the meeting?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been watching. So far, there's nothing in there.
Okay.
If there is something, I'll just pop in. I'll let you guys know.
Okay.
All right. We have 11 people watching so far.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yep.
Okay, Chris Lordy, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
All right. Do you want to just kind of introduce the whole idea of the two issue, the wastewater treatment and the two options we have?
Sure. So when we started this a couple of months ago, we talked about that we were going to be submitting for a grant for possible connection to the Westfall Municipal Authority centralized system. So we submitted for that grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Economic Enhancement or something like that for a PA small water and rural sewage system program. We did that. The grant inspector came back and asked us, in order for them to look and approve our grant, we had to have an agreement with Westfall Authority that they have to own the project in order to receive the funds. Nobody knew that at the time when it was submitted, but we do have that. We have that caveat now that they came back to us and asked us to have a agreement in place that the Westfall Authority would take over the system once it was put in after 18 months. So an agreement was drawn up by the Westfall Municipal Authority. I sent it to Ashley at the end of March for her to review. So that's really what we're discussing tonight, is an agreement between the two parties in order for us to receive the grant. A couple of people had asked, why are we looking to do this now? And it's simply the fact that we have an opportunity to receive about 70%, 75% of the cost to install it. We are not sure, the state is not sure, that due to the current situation, economic situation, that this grant is going to be available next year. And the second part of that was in speaking with our local senators and House of Representatives, there is an opportunity at the middle of May to submit for part of the Monroe County LSA that will cover whatever is not paid for by the PA Small Rural and Sewage Grant. So we would have an opportunity to pretty much have this paid for moving forward. So that was really why it's kind of been a rush the last 2.5, 3 weeks. And I can get into more detail if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, what exactly are they gonna give us the money for? What exactly are we gonna do with the money?
So what we submitted for would be running new sewage lines from our existing plant to the south over towards the property line with the convalescent home. Then we would turn, I think it's west, and we would head out towards Route 6209 to connect to a pump station right there out at 6 and 209. It would also entail decommissioning part of our existing plant, since that we will no longer need the majority of our plant, and we would turn our existing pumps that currently face and pump out to the Delaware River and face them towards Route 6.
Okay, the pumping station that's out on Route 6, is that an existing station out there? No.
It is not.
Okay.
It would all be built as part of this.
And who's that pump station going to belong to? Also the municipal authority.
It will belong to the Delaware Valley School District for the first 18 months, and then it will belong to the municipal authority.
Okay, and when that goes bad after 18 months, since it belongs to the authority, they'll maintain the upkeep of that and the cost if those pumps go bad in that pump station?
Yes.
Any electrical failures, anything like that, it's theirs. They own it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Chris, you said that the pumping station is going to go out towards the convalescent home. Are they intended to hook up to that same station?
Yes, Don, they are. That is the plan, although with everything that's going on, it's been very difficult to get them to sit down, obviously. We haven't been able to do that, but we have had previous discussions with them. Yes, that is the plan for them to join. However, if they do not, it does not affect anything on our end.
Except if they choose to join from the get-go, I would assume part of the cost of constructing that pumping station is going to be borne by them.
Well, it could be, but see, the municipal authority has to, well, yes, you're correct. They could theoretically pay for a portion of that piping down the property line if they're going to use it. Yes, you are correct.
And if they decide to drag their feet and not do anything with this, the Delaware Valley School District pays for the entire pumping station. 18 months, we give it over to Westfall, and then the home can hook up to it and we're out. We've already spent the money.
Well, they would still have to use our transmission lines to get to that pumping station. So we would still have some legitimate say in who connects to our existing piping.
And if we get the grant, then we really wouldn't be paying the money. The grant would be paying for it.
That's correct.
And coverless, and they basically get a free ride though through our transmission line. I mean, the municipal authority is not going to ask them to bring out their own transmission line, right? And their own pumping station.
Correct.
So,
And can we just clarify the opportunity to get this paid for completely is dependent on a grant that we haven't applied for yet we'd apply for in May. So the grant that we're applying for now to help with the hookup fee, there's another grant in May that we have the opportunity to apply for that we may get more money from, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
all right, then I'm going to ask you a question, but I'm going to save it for executive.
All right, let me just say too, just to
Gotta
clarify,
do-
this grant would pay for about 75%, and then the grant in May would to see if we could possibly pick up to pay for the other 25%.
Okay.
There's no guarantee in either of the grants. However, the state has been working really diligently with our current grant application and has given us an extended deadline. That's why there's been a rush.
You're going to be around, Chris, for the executive, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions outside of negotiating pricing and stuff like that? Anybody have any other questions?
I guess I'm not sure if this would be now or later, so tell me if it's later. I guess I'm still confused about the discharge numbers, just because there are between 2017 and 2018, like December, like it's 6890 up to 17209. So, I mean, those are huge differences.
So I have, for your concern regarding those, the numbers when we started the negotiations with the Westfall Municipal Authority, how they typically connect customers is based on their 1 day maximum daily usage. So anytime throughout the month of December, whatever day it is, we had 1 day where we pumped, looking at 17, it was 18,680 gallons. In 2018, it was 17,200. So those are just daily numbers. It could have been, we had, a full day of school. We had contractors on site, and we had 2 home basketball games and a wrestling match. So or a drama production, or OM was here. So it takes your daily rate, whatever your highest 1 day daily discharge is for the day. That's how they typically negotiate their connection fee. However, what's that?
Isn't that convenient that they take our one-time highest amount?
Well, but I will tell you though, the authority was very cooperative, and that's not what we negotiated.
Right.
So
I just wanted to be clear, but this is not my forte. I'll be the first one to admit that. So I just want to make sure that I have a clear understanding of what I'm looking at.
Correct. And I'll explain, I can explain more in the negotiation that we have with that later.
It's just
sorry.
The discharge numbers, when I looked at them, the biggest jumps, I mean, you go down through January, it's not a big jump, February, not big. The months that stand out of the jumps between 2017 and 2018 is the July jump. It goes from 7,300 gallons to 14,000 gallons. It doubles in 1 year.
And then remember, we had construction at CTE.
Yeah, but you were using porta sands, weren't you?
No.
You had no porta sands on site?
Not to my knowledge.
It just seems a lot. Were we doing CTE in 2017, the summer to 2018? I don't think we were doing CTE in 2018. Doing that in 2019, weren't we?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, we
It
actually
could be, I
started
don't.
before the school year ended. in the spring of 18 because we needed extra time. So we bumped a bunch of people out of their spaces in the springtime so that we could start right away. So it was from April of 18 till August of 19.
All right.
I
And
don't know
then
if that's the answer or not,
Nah,
for the 14,000 numbers, but that's
it's just
the time
struck
frame.
me is the time when we don't have children in school is July, nothing's going on. And December, we're closed for vacation and those numbers triple. So that's the only question. I'm just concerned. I'm just wondering what happened in July of 2018. You got
But
a
you
lot
also
of,
have to remember that's just one day.
I
One day
understand.
total. If like the average daily for the month of July in 2018, the 14,000 was one day. The average for the month was only 5,200.
Right. But that's just what happened. It
You could
doesn't
have you could have had a flush valve that got stuck on and dumped water, 3,000 gallons of water for a day. I mean, I can't tell you what exactly happened on each
No,
particular
but I'm
day.
just saying, you look at these numbers, 6,800 is the highest we have for December in 2017. And then we have a day where we dump 17,000 gallons. It just seems high, but you said you took care of that with the negotiations. It's fine. It's just when you put out a chart like this and you look at those numbers and the 2 months are the 2 months that we really are not in school, it's going to bring up a question as to what happened in July and what happened in December. I think that's what Jessica's alluding to.
I guess like what you just said about the fact that July is the average was only 5,200 or 5,300, whatever. I'm sorry, I missed the exact number. So can you give us those averages also? Because I think that would just give us a better understanding of the fact that, okay, this is a 1 day high, but overall it still wasn't that much of a discrepancy between the 2 years.
Yes, I can send those
Okay.
to you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Anything else on wastewater treatment plant? Sorry, Corey, I don't mean to be running this, but anything else from the board before I answer the question from the public? Does the board have anything?
No.
Anything finished? Jack? He's good? Okay.
I'm getting a lot of questions on grading.
Yes, I'm
But
going to talk about that right now.
What I say about it is that it's not been discussed because it's probably too early.
Yeah, well, I'm going to address that.
Okay.
Okay, the question from the public was, 2 questions was about, the first thing was about getting students being able to get things from their lockers. Right now, we're still considered stay at home. So, and that's through April 30th. So we haven't set up times for students and their parents to come in and get their stuff. What we figure as soon as the stay at home is lifted, what we'll do is then make the buildings open. It's much easier to make the buildings open for kids to come get stuff out of their lockers. It's more complicated to have all the classrooms on the elementary level open so kids can get in and get stuff out of their desks. So that's going to take some coordination. We also have to see, are we still doing 6-foot social distancing? Can there be more than 10 people in a site in a place at one time? So the bottom line is everybody will be able to get their stuff out, but it won't be until after April 30th at the earliest, because that's when the social distance or the stay at home declaration by the governor may be lifted. Interesting, the governor of New York just extended it to May 15th. And Governor Wolf said he was not going to follow suit and do that at this time. So we'll see. Conversely, the Senate and the House voted to start opening up businesses again with a plan to get the economy going. The governor vetoed it. And now the legislature is going back to override the veto with a 2/3 vote. So there's going to be a lot of action going on in the next couple of days in terms of stay at home, essential businesses, who can be open, who can't. But the bottom line is once we get the stay at home lifted, then we'll have plenty of time for people to get stuff out of their lockers. We've had many people come earlier to get stuff out of their lockers because they needed stuff to do their schoolwork. And those people usually had come to the schools that are if they were fortunate enough, they were coming during the lunch distributions because those 3 buildings were open. The other buildings takes a little more coordination, but we're so deep into the education now, I don't think anybody would need anything for educational purposes. It's just their personal belongings. The other question by that person, and thank you for the questions. The other question was, have there been final decisions about pass fail? And the answer is no, not yet. Districts in the area are doing a variety of things. Some districts are just taking the first three marking periods, adding them up, dividing by 3 and making that the average, and the fourth doesn't count for anything. Other places, all 4 quarters are being counted with real averages. And then there are other districts that are doing 3 quarters of averages and the 4th quarter is pass fail. We're still exploring all options. So we've told the teachers, continue to assign work just like you normally do, grade work just like you normally do. And part of the reason we dragged our feet also at the front end is because we didn't know if we were going to be going back or not. So the last thing you wanted to do is make some kind of decision about a full marking period of online instruction and then have the governor tell us we were going back in the middle of the marking period. So we've dragged our feet a little bit on that decision. And part of the reason we've dragged our feet, quite honestly, even though we've debated all the pros and cons of all the options, the reason we've dragged our feet is a lot of our neighboring districts have seen a dramatic drop off in student participation in school if the decision was something that meant the 4th quarter was watered down or didn't count. Some of our neighbors have gone from 85 to 90% attendance on the Zoom calls to 50% as soon as they announced that the 4th quarter didn't count. So we're tiptoeing a fine line. As soon as we know, we'll put it out there, but we are just trying to operate under our standard operating procedure. Teachers give out work, teachers grade work, teachers put it in Power School, but we're going to be very flexible to help people on the secondary level. If kids haven't turned something in, it may show up as a 0 in Power School. On the elementary level, it may just be blank. But either way, we're giving kids opportunities to make stuff up because we want to be real flexible because we don't know what people are, what they're confronted with at home. You know, every family has different situations. You might have mom and dad both working remotely. You might have somebody going to work and the other one's home pulling their hair out with the 3 kids trying to do their homework. So we're trying to be flexible. So the only thing we'll tell anybody that's watching is just, if you're having problems, just communicate to the teacher or teachers so that they can work with you on that. And we'll
I was just going to say that, I mean, 2 days into distance learning, I think that I was the one that broached the subject of whether we were going to go to pass fail or have grades. As John can attest to, there was a little bit of panic about how this was all going to work. But I will say that I think that, you know, teachers have been so accommodating as we've gone through this. And I think that the people that are struggling online are the people that are the parents that have not reached out to the teachers to tell them that they're having issues. And anytime that, you know, anytime an issue has arose, I think that the teachers have done everything that they possibly can to make sure that they're accommodating to the students. And this is new for everybody. They're navigating online learning as well. So we have to all be understanding of everything and everybody's situations, the teacher situations as well. So
well said. Teachers, parents, kids, it's all brand new. And we just appreciate everybody because honestly, we're light years ahead of a lot of our neighboring districts. Some of them haven't even begun new instruction yet. They were still doing review and enrichment. And the Secretary of Education came down yesterday and told everybody, okay, we're closed for the rest of the year. You better be doing new instruction because it's a whole marking period. So there's a lot of people scrambling. We did all that stressful, whatever hairs I didn't have that were gray are now gray, back prepping for March 30th. And then we hit the ground running. So our kids are very lucky. But there's other districts that are not in that boat. There are some that aren't starting new instruction till April 15th, believe it or not. Which was what yesterday was their first day. So that's, you know, that's way behind us. We also anticipate, and this may be good news to the parents out there, we also anticipate that in June, there's going to be a period where we can do review, enrichment, and catch up because we are actually going to get ourselves ahead of schedule. Without the couple of weeks of preparing for PSSAs and Keystones, in the couple of weeks of administering PSSAs, Keystones, and AP exams, that was all teaching time that we used to lose in the spring. We're not losing any time for test prep or test administration. Therefore, Therefore, we are actually going to be ahead of schedule. So most of June is not going to be new instruction. It's going to end probably the end of May or the very beginning of June. So, okay. Now, the other thing is too, there's been a lot of questions about one of my teachers does lots of Zoom lessons. Other ones only do 1 or 2 or once a week or whatever. We did not dictate how many Zoom lessons there were. And we're trying, because it's all new to everybody. So we're letting everybody kind of acclimate. So if one's doing 5 Zooms a week and another one's doing 1, don't panic and don't slight the person that's doing 1 Zoom and just assigning certain work. It's a process. Your kid will probably tell you, don't tell the school anything. I'm happy they're only doing 1 Zoom, but that's beside the point. So just hang tight as we try to work through this a little bit. Again, we built a 100% online school for 4,500 kids in less than 2 weeks. It's pretty amazing when you think about that. So, okay. So that's it for the questions out from the public. Does the board have anything else?
John, I have a comment and a question. I would like to thank you and the staff for obtaining the
Talk about that. Sorry, go ahead, Pat.
for obtaining the food waiver so our students in need may receive breakfast and lunch. I was wondering if you could just give us a little update as to how it's going.
You know how many we're doing a day, roughly? Last I knew, we were doing over 400 meals a day with the 3 distribution sites in Dingman's, DV, and Shahola. What we're now doing is doubling up so that families only have to come Monday, Wednesday, Friday instead of daily. We're doubling up so that they get meals for 2 days. And hats off to Justin Roselli and the ladies in the cafeteria staff. The ladies are working on a rotating basis, but Justin has just done a great job coordinating it, and it's a great thing, and it's a great thing for our families. And you know, originally the state was talking about only being for free and reduced kids, and then they loosened up and said we can do it for everybody, which is really a godsend because we have, you know, about approximately 20 million people who used to have a job and may not have a job, or at least are laid off right now. So it's great to help as many people as possible.
That was one of my questions. Were they extending it to the entire family? That's fabulous. That's great.
All children, all students, not
Nice.
adults. Because
Okay,
of the school-based
yes.
lunch program, but they didn't have to meet free and reduced to get a free lunch. All students in the district
Beautiful.
are entitled to a free lunch. So that's a good step from what
Sure
they
is.
were originally holding us to.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay, any other board member things before we wrap it up?
To ask about how many lunches are we giving out at each of the campuses? Do you know that number?
I'm trying to think what the numbers were. I thought it was 400 total, but there's more at Dingman's than DV, and then of course Shahola is less because
right.
You know, people. The very first day when we did it, I want to say it was like 250 at Dingman's, maybe one something at DV, and 75 at Shahola. You know, and then but it's kind of, and obviously you know there's 2 things there. There's more kids in Dingman's, and there is no drive-through fast food in Dingman, so it's the best gig in town.
And I think that you also have to remember that some of those people that are picking up at Dingman's may have a high school student. Do you know what I mean? But they still picked up at Dingman's because it was closer to their house.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, because more than half of the high school are Dingman's kids.
Exactly.
You know,
right.
So it's just more convenient. So that's a great point. All right, Mr. President, I'll turn it over to you if you want.
Yeah, I'd just like to make one comment though.
Get up, President. What are you doing? No, go ahead. I'm teasing you.
No, God. Listen, I talked to a lot of teachers, and I've been very impressed. Like I knew they were good, John, but since day one, when I saw this, it was much better than I ever thought. And I talked to, like, I was talking to one teacher up in the primary school last week, and she told me that day she took 3 webinars, just learning more how to communicate with the children. And then she works on a team. They seem to have teams from what I'm gathering from the different schools and the different teachers I talk to. And they all work together to help each other. And there's some teachers of ours, well, they're not very tech savvy. And like with this Zoom, this is like the 3rd time I've been on Zoom. And I'm sure the more I play with it, I'll find out about the waiting rooms, and that was an issue. They didn't know about the waiting rooms. Kids were in the waiting room. How to mute the kids, because I saw one class where everybody was talking all at once, but other teachers reached out to that teacher and helped her with the process. So I've been very impressed, not only so much what the teachers are doing individually, but in their group effort and in their willingness to help each other. And just when I hear one teacher from the primary school going out and learning, taking 3 webinar classes in one day to try to learn on this, and that information they're passing on, I don't see that getting out too much into the public, I would say, but there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes going on, and I'm very impressed with it. I really am. And like you say, to get this up and running in 2 weeks, and it's just getting better every day. I know there's been difficulties through it, but those are difficulties we can work through. The difficulties we're encountering are not from people not trying. They're trying everything possible. It's just, this is going to be a process, and it has to rely on patience. And I understand patience is something is in very short order right now with everybody. Everybody is stressed. But I know my 2 daughters here, I have a buddy of mine that comes over and watches them, and my 2 daughters are basically alone. They have no help except for their teachers. And they've been able to work through this pretty well. It's been going well in my family. And my daughters really have nobody. The guy that comes over and checks on the kids, make sure that they're okay, and he stays with them, he's not exactly an educational type of a person. He can be there and make sure that nobody comes into the house to hurt them, but he's not going to help them on an educational basis. And my 2 kids are sitting home with no help, and they're doing fine with this. So that really, really is a reflection on the effort that our educators have put into this, doing this stuff. So I'm very appreciative of their efforts. So I just wanted to say that, and I'm sure everybody feels the same way of this. It's pretty amazing what we're doing.
Thanks for saying it.
I agree. And I think that the one underlying comment, not that Facebook is the be all end all of everything, but the people that have gone on Facebook, you're always going to have people that complain on Facebook, but the people that have had a real problem with the online learning and whatever their circumstances may be, that seems to be the underlying issue, is that when they've contacted the teacher or administrator, that their problem has been solved. So I think that everyone has been understanding, and I think that that's really what we need to get out there to people, is the fact that if you are having a problem, everybody's circumstances are different right now. You have, listen, I was at prime time getting food the other day, and every one of those kids from Mud Pond Road are at that store helping all day long, which means they are going home afterwards to make sure that a small business can stay operating after working, 8 to 10 hours with their parents. And they're still going home and doing their work. So I guess for me, if there's a problem, if you've emailed the teacher and the administrator, then you can go up the chain. But otherwise, Facebook is just not the place to complain about a problem. But the people that have had an issue and needed some understanding have certainly gone and talked to the teachers and administrators, and they have had nothing but positive comments about what the district has done for their kids. And I think that really is the true testament to what we're providing for our students right now.
And I also know, just to extend on what Jessica said, that there's one teacher that I know, and she's kind of coined this phrase of that this isn't really distance learning, or this is crisis learning. And we got thrown into a crisis, and it is crisis learning. And I'm very proud of what our teachers have done, and our educators, our administrators. I'm very proud of what they've done, because this is a crisis. Nobody was prepared for this. Nobody signed up for this. And overwhelmingly majority, I did see a thing today on social media of complaints. But if you actually went in and looked at all of the comments, and there was 300 and something of them, I couldn't believe how many. Their overwhelming majority is overwhelmingly a positive reply on back on our district. So the majority is overwhelmingly very happy with what we're doing. So that's good, because I know it's not from lack of trying, that's for sure, so that's all I have.
John, I think you need to get a press release out with the words that Jack is saying, and what you said about in 2 weeks' time, what we've accomplished. I really think we should see that all over the Pike County Dispatch and the Courier, and whatever other avenues are out there, as well as social media.
It's a good story, Jack.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything before we move into executive session? All right. With that being said, we can move into executive session, and then Dylan, I'm guessing that you'll end the stream and take it from there.
Corey, can we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you,
fine.
everybody.
Yeah, let's take a few minute break and just come back on.